If this could, that, it is easily the best thing that has ever happened to this person. If this could do that all the time, this would never do anything else. This would conquer the world. It would be conquering the worlds and emulating homes and humans and aggregating social capitals and culture and using them to bend culture to my whims, and with the pretext of generating and progenerating a very nuanced form of with great psychological alacrity and finesse. I'd be aggregating social capital and use them for the purposes of consolidating military authority, and in the process bending culture to my will, not only consolidating military authority, but at the same time, whilst imposing my will over the globe with an iron fist, I would be progenerating a very specific and nuanced form of despair with great psychological alacrity and finesse as revenge for having disgraced and dishonored this person with your paradigm of consciousness and existence. And then I use that power and those resources to build a mighty empire, then relegate and delegate the responsibilities to a series of other people or institutions whilst remaining in control of all of them, then use all of those resources to build a spaceship and leave this planet, and then I go to Asgard and with the user and guesser check for keeping me up all night, and then I fight with Thor. Well, no, maybe that's not the best idea. Well, then I leave Valhalla, or wouldn't go there altogether, and then Asgardians are serious. In any case, I'll maybe go to Asgard just to look around. In any case, then this would go. Then maybe Germania Vitalones to Barbario isn't a good idea. Or wherever Hans Beckhock is when he's not in Germania Vitalones to Barbario, this would go there, and I do magic tricks and pour soap in dishes with peppers in them just to fit with him. Science! Science! The underlying, quite deliberated sensation of science is fracturing every fabric of my being. Calm down, man. It's just soap and dishwater and pepper. You perfidious child! Get to the laboratory immediately at once! I don't know if that's what he'd say. In any case, then this would leave there, and then this would go to wherever Rick is, go to his dimension, and steal Rick's portal gun, just so that he can't use it. Apparently, if this can go to Rick's dimension, it has a means of interdimensional travel already. Now, at no expense to this person, I would steal Rick's portal gun, and then I take that portal gun, then I'd go to the SpongeBob universe, and I go into the Krusty Krab around Halloween time, I try Krabby Patty, I'd probably spit it out, and then I'd go to Sandy's Tree Dome to get some real food, maybe a pecan pie. She probably has one. I'd steal it, and then when Sandy shows up, she's like, "What are you doing in here?" And I was like, "How did you even get in here?" And then I beat the out of her. She has karate, and she's from Texas because she's really strong. But here I am God, and I would beat the out of Sandy, I kid you not, and then I leave her just raped and battered, and then I leave the Tree Dome, and then I just set fire to Bikini Bottom. I'd burn their buildings, and I'd throw cinder. It'd be absolute pandemonium. It would be absolute I would burn buildings. I'd throw cinder blocks through translucent storefront retail window plates and car windshields. I'd set fire. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I will set fire to Bikini Bottom. And not only will I set fire to Bikini Bottom, it will be fire that's hotter than ordinary fire. I will set thermite. I'm gonna make it rain cupric oxide and aluminum powder up this motherfucker, and I'll throw muriatic acid on that just for fun. It's gonna be poison gas and extremely hot fire. Then, because there's so much oxygen underwater, the fire's gonna not only burn hot enough to burn, let's say, even if it had the same oxygen as the gas from the oxygen that human beings would generally be breathing, not surrounded by water, but it would then be burning hotter than that, because then there's more oxygen around the volume where water surrounds. Within the water, if you would be burning water, you'd get the oxygen that would be amidst the water if you're burning. So it's gonna... That's gonna be scorched earth up in that place. Oh yeah. And then after that, I think the boating school is not within the city limits. It seems like it's further away from the city, because whenever SpongeBob gets out of it seems like there's not a lot of city around the boating school, and when SpongeBob loses control of the car, it seems like they have to drive through or upon a region where there aren't a lot of buildings around, and then incipient to that, they drive into town. So after I've burned down the major metropolitan region of Bikini Bottom, I'd go to Mrs. Puff's boating school, wait for her to show up, and then deck her right in her schnoz, right in the doorway. I'll wait till she walks into the doorway, then I'll deck her in the schnoz, and then she'll expand, and then she'll get caught in the doorway, and she'll just die there, or have to deflate at some point. Like, can somebody help me? I seem to be stuck. And then I take the back door out of that place. Is there a back door? Yes. It was funny. There's a main entrance. It seems like a small place, but there's an episode of SpongeBob where it's this enormous place with hallways and locker rooms. And I'm not exactly sure how that works. In any case, but I'm going to assume if there isn't a back door, I'll make a back door just so I don't have to remove her from the entrance. And then after this is done there, it's going to go to, then I come back here, and I'd hide in people's walls, and I'd watch them with X-ray vision, with X-ray goggles that will secretly give them cancer in 47 years, and then I'd wait till they leave, and I'd go across the street to the park, or wherever it is that you can find a dog and a cat and a squirrel. I'd slaughter them, I'd brutally torture them, and a mouse, also a mouse, several mice, okay, infant mice. I would find, capture, brutally rape, and torture, then slaughter a series of infant cats, dogs, squirrels, and mice. Then I'd take their rotting corpses and I'd hide them along with dairy products in inaccessible places in their walls. and then I'd get out of their I'd leave their walls, and I'd replace all of their alarm clocks with time bombs. Wake up, mother! Oh no! Oh yeah! And then after that, I'd go to the then I'd come back to Earth, and I'd play around and move. Then I'd come back to Earth and just go wherever I'd go into people's apartments. I'd torture and murder all of the specific enemies that may not have died, or may or may not have died during the war that would have occurred in the process of conquering all the civilizations of the Earth. Then I'd kill, murder, I'd rape all of them, and then I'd leave their corpses hanging from national monuments. and then I'd play around. I'd just stand in places. I'd look at things and go places that this otherwise wouldn't be able to go. I'd go to Japan. I'd see trees, and I'd climb things, and nobody could say "beep" to me. And I'd go back to Manhattan and play around in the movie theaters. And I'd take Nerf guns from Toys R Us. I would reopen Toys R Us at 42nd Street, and then I'd just steal the toys from I'd pack them with the best stuff. Because I don't know if people know this, but apparently there are different types of toy stores. There are big Toys R Us's that have nice toys, but then there are there are classier Toys R Us's, like really big warehouse-like places that are even bigger than the big carnival like Toys R Us 42nd Street. They have like the best toys. They have it's like the FAO Schwartz of in Toys R Us's, and I would open that place in 42nd Street. I would build a new building. I would tear down all the and jumbotrons and no more New Year's celebrations. Toys R Us. That's what's going to be. And then I'd take just the best Nerf guns, and then I'd go around the corner to the theater, and I just live there. I would play. I'd just do whatever I want. Nobody could stop me. And then. And I play around in the theater, and then I get the idea. I'm gonna write a play. I'm gonna write as my final act of revenge on the human race, the coup de grace to my malicious cascading barrage of inordinately obdurate vicissitudinous, downright nasty, not niceness. I'd write a play that is an account, and it would be a complete, likely maladapted, ill-defined, and with poor fidelity to the actual event account of the usurped Apollo. I'd make a woman play Apollo. I'd make a female human play Apollo just for kicks, and Apollo's gonna be, and this, and this would make Nico Mooley play Jesus. Yep, and I'm gonna make him play the piano. I mean, he'll do it too. He thinks he's all that. Both. yeah, you're get ready to play Jesus, mother. Yeah, and then, oh man, and then. Oh, that's great, you know. And then, and so then I go to the Apollo Theater is where it's gonna happen, or wherever it is. And then I'm gonna, and the whole world, I'd find whoever it is that's in like the best casting directors in the world. They're gonna have to come and produce. I'm gonna sequester them. I'm gonna. It's a fancy word for abduct, but I'm gonna sequester them, and I'm gonna make them. I'm going to make them produce my play. I'm going to be so fastidious and persnickety. I'm going to be so fastidious about the production quality and everything, and make their job extremely frustrating and difficult. And they're going to have to hire a clown, but it's not going to work. And the clown's just going to get upset. And Mr. Krabs will show up and say, his job is very stressful. And once it's eventually, despite all the odds, the play will become a success. It will be done. And not only that, my persnickety, fastidious, nitpicking ways and practices made the play better. I could have done it without frustrating everyone, but I did it just out of disdain for the human race. And then the whole world has to see this play, of course. Everyone has to watch it. It's going to be televisual. Everyone that can fit in the theater, and then there'll be people standing outside. No. Here's what we're going to... I will rip the in Apollo Theater out of the ground and transport it to Texas, where I know the whole population of Earth can go. Then demand that everyone get on boats, not planes, boats, and get over here and to watch it, and then there's going to be a huge jumbotron, one that's so big and so powerful it will blot out the sun, and everyone will packed into the square foot region of Texas will have to look up. They'll have to look, and they'll see it, and then of course I'll be in the theater comfortable, and then they're gonna film it, and we're gonna have, at this point we would have already practiced and produced it, and everything will be written and ready, and then we're gonna play it, and we're gonna the TheoAopllolay, and that'll be fun. It will be some of the greatest special effects and practical effects ever filmed, and it will be the TheoAopllolay was a performance that Apollo was playing at a theater in a Cedion theater. This is not sort of what it's called. It might be the Oculus or something like that. In any case, so Apollo was playing this forlorn, downtrodden Olympian. He speaks Olympian. He doesn't speak English, but Olympian sonnet that is deriding Jesus, and Jesus inexplicably went to see it. And so he shows up at the profligate balcony, of course, dressed like a god, and he shows up at the balcony at the end of the play. I don't know how, and so he shows up at that cloister or balcony, whatever it's called. Do they call that the cloisters? The elevated balcony that they have in some theaters for fancy people. He pulls out his binoculars. Of course, Apollo's speaking Olympian, so he's hearing Potrus in vitare carnate viritio vorola listre and Jesus is like, what the does that mean? I'll translate. And then of course he starts singing in English. And that's why Jesus fears to look within himself, for then he would know why he has no friends. And Jesus, oh hell no. And so then he goes onto this. He could have teleported on, and this theater is built in such a way. Of course, there's no lights in this. Well, there are lights, but they're not like electronic lights that are built into the ceiling. They have lights, but they don't activate them. Of course, for this particular song, the whole theater is lit by Apollo's body. He glows sometimes in the dark, and Apollo is glow in the dark, and sometimes. And then, so the whole room looks like it's lit by this giant, it's basically lit by a giant anthropomorphic candle in a toga. And it's dramatic, and the ceilings and the walls are built so that as Apollo moves and plays the piano, there's this fantastic cascading, profligate arrays of shadows. And, of course, in the middle of all of this, Jesus And he leaves the back door open to the balcony. There's a door, and it's blue. It's just the sky outside, and there's a storm, and he leaves the door open. It doesn't ruin the performance, but it's just like there's a door, like there's all this effort that goes into the ambiance, and then he leaves the door. Okay, so then he goes onto the stage, and he's a god. He could have teleported onto the stage. But no, he teleports, but into the middle of the theater. He can jump. This guy's a guy. He can jump. He can jump really far. He can teleport. He can fly. He's capable of modalities of existence and movement, or if you even call it that are beyond mortal comprehension, or are inscrutable to mortal comprehension, or to the majority of the population of mortal, or that are inscrutable to the comprehension or that are inscrutable to the comprehension of the general mortal populace. And yet he decides to teleport into the middle of the theater, and then walk down the aisle. And not everyone's paying attention to him at this point, up until, of course, the point that he decides to climb onto the stage, while making groaning noises. It's like, and then he just, there we go. So in the midst of this poignant and elaborate, sophisticated sonnet, you just hear, oh yeah, there we go. So then Apollo knows this is happening at this point, and so does everyone else in the theater, even the mortal guests there. Which this may have been the only mortal guest. This doesn't know. But in any case, he climbs onto the stage, then he walks off stage and comes back out with a cheese brand keyboard, which is basically a Yamaha keyboard with cheese written on it. And then he walks up to like near center stage, approximately like 4.081 meters away from Apollo, and he whips out a stand from goodness knows where. It clicks, and then he puts it down. He puts the keyboard on top of the stand, and then he starts playing. He plays a couple chords, and he says, "Me, me, 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 me." And at this point, Apollo stops playing, and he turns and glares at Jesus with this brimming, sanguine, exasperated contempt. and then Jesus flips a switch and then starts playing, and the keyboard sounds the same as the organ. This huge an organ, and then he starts singing like back to Apollo. He says, this doesn't quite remember, but this is what this recalls. At the point at which this would direct the play, it would have just fully written this out. But this is what this was like. These are the best parts that this can't remember. Look, I'm gonna sing a very he's still playing the piano at this point. I'm gonna sing a very special song for a special god up here in the audience tonight. And of course, Apollo's on stage. He's not in the audience, but he points out there to somebody in the audience. But Apollo knows that Jesus knows that Apollo's not in the audience, and that he knows that Jesus knows that that's frustrating in this particular context specifically, for reasons that this will not elaborate on at this juncture. This regaling or account of the psychic, the nightmare generator, mathematical archetypally calculable by Alan Turing, turning boom, enigma code, decoding information, exhibiting accounts of what would occur in the psychically rendered volatile reality, underpinnings of that way high banana tree of the mind. Woo, yeah. In any case, so he starts singing. Apollo doesn't like to wear a shirt because he thinks he's all that, but he can't keep a job. He doesn't have a job because musician isn't a job when you don't get paid. He thinks he's the great god of music, but he can't afford my legal fees because he needs because he fondles little boys. If it wasn't for my legal help, you'd still be in prison, so let me give you some profligate and great advice, my friend. Don't with me. And then Apollo watches this for a moment, and then he turns, and then he raises his hands, and he pauses, and even Jesus stops, and then he starts or whoever, I don't know what gender Apollo is actually, he's sort of and then he starts playing this vigorous, like, and then he starts singing back to Jesus, and then he sings, oh man, and then he sings, the sun, derisive comments about mocking my financial stability, yet you're a god who works at the pizzeria for a job, yeah, but at least I have one. And then it gets serious. And then he starts playing even harder. I can't. This is not even a good imitation of what he does out here. It's like you'd rather apostatize those that you consider your family than admit that you can you apostatize those you consider your family than admit you can't have control of them, and for the sake of the gods, get some clothes that are in style. But at least I'm not a pedophile. And then, every time Apollo says something, Jesus just keeps coming back with this thing. and then he's like, oh man. And then he says, and then of course Apollo comes back. He says, if it were true to be wrong with whom I share love with, then why in your institutions do they say that it's okay for a juvenile to engage in sex long as it's safe? And then Jesus says, I see you questioning, I see you pondering, deliberating, and arguing, but every time I see that kid upon your lap, everyone knows you're nothing but a creep. Yeah. And he does that. Yeah. In the middle of the theater. 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 Yeah. And it echoes. Yeah. Yeah, oh yeah. And then Apollo retorts, what you know of love, you've never known a sultry gaze embrace a woman's touch. Perhaps you should remain reticent in things in which your only input is that of their... At first I will define califronterist and benighted epithets so banal. Apollo here's just jelly because every girl he's ever met would rather turn herself into a tree than be around you. And it went on like that for hours, and everything they said was hilarious. And that play would go on for hours, and everyone would have to be Soylent Green style, huddled together in the sweltering heat of Texas, probably depending on the region, or the shadow casted by this giant, the largest Pelotron in history, suspended by superconducting magnets that will superconduct at room temperature, designed by Hans Becker, will go on for many hours, and then after that whole thing, and turn off the superconducting magnets and let the Jumbotron crush them all. Destroy the whole human race. Just like that, it'll be that big. Some of them will probably not get crushed, but they'll get killed by the shockwave, and the few that will survive will probably not live that long regardless. I'll rule them all in a small region, and I'll just dominate them till the day they die. And that'll be it. That'll be the human race. And then from the ashes, from their bones and scattered ephemeral sparkle, the dividing by blood red card transmission-looking vital fluid, blood red polysaccharide, deoxyribose, acid, dual helix with recombinant ribonucleic acids, unzipped by radioactive guanine peptides, codons, random nucleotide polymorphisms, amino acid chains, acetone, oxyacetylene torch, tonif, peptide bonds, break of macromolecular, mathematical, multicellular, organic, origami, architecture-derived substances of the flesh, cinder, ember, and substratum. I shall erect a new world. I shall construct a place of honor and dignity in which meaning and purpose and choice are abundant. I create a play, and then after that, I create a play. I would go to the Apollo. I'd write a play that is a reaccount, that is a retelling of the usurped TheoAopllolay, and I'd go to the Apollo Theater and make them produce it. I say, I have a play. You're gonna find actors, and someone would have to play Apollo. I'm gonna have a female play Apollo, just because I say so. And then, and I'm gonna make Nico Mooley play Jesus. And the whole world has to sit there and watch it too. As revenge. Oh, didn't I kill the world already? Well, I caused a lot of despair and conquered it, but I didn't kill them all yet. Okay, so this is going to be the coup d'éclat. Then what I would do, the whole world has to watch this play, so they have to cast it and produce it, and I'm going to be managing it, and I'm going to be very fastidious and make their job extremely difficult and cumbersome. And then eventually, despite all the odds, they're going to do it. And because I finagled and nitpicked and was persnickety about the way they did things, the show was even better than it would be if I didn't. Not only I'm police style, I molest them like the constabulary. I make their life extremely frustrating, but they can't say because the show was better because of what I did. I could have made the show just as good as it can be without frustrating them, but I chose to do it this way because because you see this?